Hello there. Welcome to my review of the 2004 film Van Helsing. This is sort of a sister review to my Monster Squad review, so please check that out as well. Eventually I'll get around to Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein to complete the classic Monsters team-up movie reviews, and I'm sure it will be before Universal manages to work out what they are doing with their monster universe. So Van Helsing stars Hugh Jackman as Gabriel Van Helsing. According to the filmmakers, they changed his name from Abraham to Gabriel, or Gabriel, because Abraham sounds like an old man name. But the actual reason is even stupider. Kate Beckinsale plays Anna Valerius, Van Helsing's love interest. Richard Roxburgh plays Count Dracula, who unsurprisingly is the villain. And David Wenham plays Carl, Van Helsing's sidekick and comic relief. The film is directed and written by Stephen Sommers, who had a big hit with The Mummy, but has since failed to match its success by making more and more terrible films, like the first G.I. Joe film. So, on to the spoiler-free review. This was Universal's first attempt to make a monster universe, and as you can probably guess by the lack of Van Helsing sequels, it worked out about as well as it did recently. It is dreadful, from start to finish. It is CGI heavy, but the effects are quite poor. Not quite Scorpion King in Mummy Returns, but close. The plot makes very little sense. The dialogue is just daft. There are some interesting ideas that are quickly cut off in favour of badly shot action scenes. The humour falls so flat it's embarrassing. The acting is poor, but I think a lot of that is down to the scripts because no one in this film is a bad actor. The whole film is desaturated, I think, to sort of look like a black and white film, but ends up just looking blue and bland. It's not scary at all, but it's not really supposed to be. It's an action film, and it has plenty of action, but the scenes in between are really just there to fill time between the action scenes. The basic plot is Dracula wants to take over the world for reasons that are never really explained or explored, using a scheme that seems overly complicated and unnecessary, and Van Helsing has to stop him. It attempts to make this basic plot more interesting by making it complicated and convoluted, but this just makes it more confused. I would suggest you avoid this film because watching it will add absolutely nothing to your life. Definitely nothing but the worst. If you do plan to watch this film, despite my warnings, then now's the time to leave as I'm about to get into spoilers. The film opens with the Universal logo, which fizzes into black and white, and this is the high point of the film. The prologue is also black and white, and this introduces Dr. Frankenstein, bringing his monster to life as villagers storm his castle. Turns out he's working with Dracula, but Dracula kills him, causing the monster, who has only just come to life, to get angry at Dracula, killing his father, and so the monster throws him into the fire and then runs away to a windmill which catches fire and explodes before Dracula can get to him. So Dracula gives up and doesn't check the ruins of the windmill at any time. Instead, he spends the time trying and failing to recreate Frankenstein's experiments for reasons I'll get on to. We then get a second prologue to introduce Van Helsing. This is more like the opening of a James Bond film, where we see him take down a villain to show how good he is. But Van Helsing's actually pretty bad at taking down the villain, in this case Mr. Hyde, who in this version is a giant CGI monster who eats people. Van Helsing eventually gets lucky and knocks him off Notre Dame Cathedral, where this Mr. Hyde hangs out apparently, at which point he reverts to his Dr. Jekyll form, and so someone on the ground who manages to spot and identify Van Helsing calls him a murderer. I think this is supposed to set up the fact that he's infamous as a ruthless assassin amongst normal people, but that's never followed up on, as when he gets to Transylvania, they know he's been sent there to help them. He secretly works for the Vatican, killing monsters, and Cardinal Exposition explains some of the plot to us. He's like the Vatican's version of M, and he plans to send Van Helsing to Transylvania, a year after the prologue. We're then introduced to this film's version of Q, Carl the Friar, who is also the sidekick and the comic relief, and they both head off to Transylvania via a montage. Presumably they said nothing to each other on this journey, as it isn't until they arrive in Transylvania that Carl asks Van Helsing about having amnesia about his entire past. This is referenced many times in the film, so no prizes for guessing. It is revealed in the finale. They meet Beckinsale's Anna and the whole village, who are nondescript, and they're all distrustful of them until the brides of Dracula show up, and we get a very long action scene where Van Helsing fails to kill any of them for ages. He finally managed to get one with his crossbow machine gun, and let's not forget he's the Vatican's best monster hunter. After this, the village has remembered exactly who he is, and so they're fine with him.
Let me see your faces.
Why?
Because we don't trust strangers.
His name is Van Helsing.
Anna's brother has been killed falling off a cliff fighting a werewolf, so obviously he returns having become a werewolf. When he's a werewolf, he does exactly what Dracula wants, so he has just enough time in his human form to have a pointless conversation with Anna. She and Van Helsing go looking for Dracula and immediately find him at Frankenstein's castle, which she hasn't thought to check in the last year. They find Dracula eggs filled with dead vampire babies, and Anna explains vampires are the walking dead, so it makes sense that they are born dead, apparently. Apparently this is an obvious assumption to make. Dracula is trying to bring these babies to life using Frankenstein's experiment, and you don't need to worry about why he wants to do this, rather than just biting people to make them vampires, or why he wants all these vampires anyway. He just does. He succeeds temporarily, and then they explode. He has a face-to-face with Van Helsing and reveals he knows Van Helsing's past, but isn't going to reveal that now. Anna and Van Helsing escape to the burnt remains of the windmill and quickly find the monster, who is still alive, and who Dracula must have forgotten about, as he's never bothered to check before now. Somehow the monster knows everything that is going on, but now that Dracula knows he's still alive, they have to get him to safety in Rome. They do this with a silly carriage chase, which manages to kill another bride, but Anna is captured. Van Helsing arranges to swap Anna for the monster, and presumably double-cross Dracula, but this happens at a masked ball filled with vampires, which the Vatican's best monster hunter is surprised by. At this point they start calling the monster Frankenstein, and Van Helsing has been bitten by a werewolf, so will become a werewolf at the next full moon in just 2 days, because in this film there's a full moon every couple of days. Dracula has run from Frankenstein's castle to his own hidden castle. No idea why he wasn't there the whole time, as he has all the same equipment set up there, but it turns out that Dracula has a secret werewolfism cure, and luckily they find out how to get to Dracula's hidden castle incredibly quickly. There's more pointless action scenes, and finally a showdown with Dracula after Van Helsing has become a werewolf, but not totally a werewolf. We discover Van Helsing killed the human version of Dracula, as he was working for God, meaning he's probably the angel Gabriel. Now he's an angel werewolf who has been around for 800 years but doesn't remember any of it, who works for the Vatican as their best monster hunter, even though he's not very good at killing monsters. It makes so much sense. He kills Dracula by biting him, because the only thing that can kill Dracula is the bite from a werewolf, but he is fully transformed into a werewolf by the end of this, so he kills Anna as she injects him with the antidote. When he becomes human again, he's sad for a bit, but gets over it. I mean, it's drivel. I'm not sure how you could rescue it other than starting again from scratch, because it's not a bad premise, it's just terribly executed. If you make Dracula a little more sympathetic with decent motivation, don't make Van Helsing a werewolf, just make him cleverer and better at his job. Don't make the film an unnecessary race against the clock. Give Anna a real character arc so her death is more poignant. Make her brother more of a character. Just basic stuff to make you care a little for what's going on, because it's just such a nothing film. I mean, there are various things you could do to trim out some of the action scenes which are completely unnecessary, but overall I just wouldn't bother. I mean, they did scrap the whole thing and start again a few years later with the new monster universe, but that's already fizzled up and dried, so definitely avoid. Still nothing but the worst. Thank you. Goodbye.